Hey, 8th grade, Mr. Herzberg here. Today is Wednesday, April 29th, 2020. We're almost getting to the very end of Fahrenheit here, next to the last 10 pages. You guys are going to be doing 121 to 131 today. We're also going to be going over our homework questions from Monday night and today's journal, plus this week's standard. Let's get started. Remember, this week's standard is Reading Informational Text 8.4, which is pulling out word choice and why an author might decide to use specific words and how those words change the tone or the meaning of our piece of writing. So if you're reading a textbook, for example, a science textbook, you're expecting there to be certain words in the science textbook that would apply just to science. Whereas if you're reading a grammar textbook, for example, you'll have words that apply just to grammar. So word choice and word meaning all play a part in what you're reading. So today you're going to read the passages. In your Google Doc, you'll have 3, number 1 to 3. And you're going to pay attention to the italicized words that are underlined. Do those underlined words give a tone that is positive, negative, or neutral? Positive, negative, neutral, you can put P. Neutral can be NEU or write out neutral. I know you guys like abbreviating. Or negative can just be N. Rewrite each note in your own words and to show you understand what it means. If needed, you can use a dictionary. Dictionary.com or Google Define Search. Let's do the first one together, and then we'll go over our homework. Dear John, after your persistent cruelty and overall parasitic behavior, I think it would be best if we stopped seeing each other. I won't miss you. I have been grieving over the loss of what I had hoped our relationship would be almost from the very beginning. So, wow. Okay, so like a breakup letter here, and the words that are underlined here are persistent, cruelty, parasitic, and grieving. These are all negative words. That's right. They're all words that mean bad things. Persistent means someone who's bothering you. Cruelty means mean. Parasitic is like someone leeching or living off of you, sucking life out of you. Grieving is kind of sadness and being upset. So the job for you to do would be to tell me those 4 words' meanings and then rewrite in your own words the letter in a positive way or a way that's not as negative. Okay? All right, cool. Let's go over our homework from Monday night. That would be part 3 of Fahrenheit. What do you think Montags expressed any regret about why he calls himself an awful fool and an idiot? He calls himself an awful fool and an idiot because he wishes he wasn't who he was. If it wasn't for the way he was, none of this would have happened. How does Montag know Beatty wanted to die? Why do you think he wanted to die? Think of your answer. Montag knew Beatty wanted to die because he kept pushing Montag. He kept saying and doing things. He saw Montag with a flint sword in his hands. He kept saying things and pushing him and punching him. He was testing him and saying these, go ahead, do it, Montag. Pull the trigger, do it. He knew. I think Beatty wanted to die because I think he was too much like Montag. He knew he himself had gotten to that point Montag was at in his life, and I think Beatty moved on from it, but I don't think he ever fully recovered. So I think he also was suffering. What is remarkable and disturbing about the declaration of war scene at the gas station? Montag runs after murdering Captain Beatty and forcing his co-workers to the ground. He then runs off because now everyone is looking for him. And he runs past a gas station and he overhears the news. And on the news it says, America is at war. We're at war. And the people in the gas station could care less. They're just making friendly chit-chat, kind of like Mildred was. They're so consumed with their little lives that nothing matters to them. Why do you think the kids who almost run over Montag could kill him for no reason at all in the world? They are selfish, consumed with their own lives. Speeding down the road 100 miles an hour, hitting a man they don't care. What does Montag do on the way to Fabers' house and why? He's trying to heal himself. First of all, his leg's been attacked by one of the hounds, so he's trying to learn how to re-walk on his leg because one of the shots went into his leg. And he's also stops and realizes, oh my gosh, I'm running straight to Fabers' house because I have nowhere else to go. What does Montag mean when he says, I was saving something up and it's a wonder it didn't show on me like fat? He was saving up knowledge and reading, and he's surprised it took this long for it to finally spill over. How does Faber feel now and why? Faber feels more alive than ever because he's actually doing something. What does Montags daydream about watching himself get caught by the mechanical hand on TV reveal about his mental state? Think about watching TV having something to do with this. Montag at this point is really starting to get freaked out because this is his first time. He killed his boss. He's disconnected himself from a firefighter. Mildred's gone. His life as he knows it, his known it, is changed. And remember, he's a dynamic character. Beatty was always a flat character. Mildred was always a flat character. Montag is dynamic. He's there to change, and he has changed. So I think the seeing himself on the TV, having these nightmares, shows his change. What is Montag's escape plan? He sits with Faber and he wants to, Faber gives him the location in the woods where he's going to go. What does Montag's description of the TV audience mean? He imagined thousands of faces with gray colors, eyes, gray tongues, gray thoughts, numb flesh of the face. He realizes that everyone that watches TV is numb. They have no color, they have no feeling, they have no passion. Everyone on this existence that he lives at is just like that. What do you think the river symbolizes? Change. The river that crosses where Faber sends him to the woods from this world to another. It's the shift from the numb, colorless, passionate world, almost like Wizard of Oz when Dorothy goes from the black and white world to Oz, which is beautiful and colorful. That's similar to what Montag's doing. He's going to a world of feeling. He's crossing over. What does the sun represent? What connection does Montag see between the sun and time? Why does he decide he was never born again? Sun and heat now to Montag no longer mean destruction. Fire, flames, kill. Heat now is life-giving. It's warm. It's comforting. Okay. Cool beans. Let's move on to page 121 to 131 for homework today. Here we go. The police, of course, they see me, but slow now, quiet. Don't turn, don't look, don't seem concerned. Walk, just walk, Montag. The beetle was rushing, the beetle was roaring, raised its speed, the beetle was whining, the beetle was in high thunder. It came skimming along in a single whistling trajectory fired from an invisible rifle. It was up to 120 miles an hour, at 130 at least. He clamped his jaws. The heat of the racing headlights burned his cheeks. It seemed and jittered its eyelids and flushed out the sweat all over his body. He shuffled idiotically and talked to himself. And then he broke and just ran. He put out his legs and they would go, and he ran as fast as he could out and down the back. God, he dropped a book, broke pace, almost turned, changed his mind, plunged, gasping, failing his hands, legs up and down, out. Now, as his head jerked about to confront the flashing glare, now the beetle was swallowed in its own light. It was nothing but a torch hurling upon him. Almost on top of him, he stumbled and fell. It's done. It's over. But the falling made a difference. An instant before reaching him, the wild beetle cut and swerved out. It was gone. Montag lay flat, his head down. Wisps of laughter trailed back to him, with the blue exhaust coming out from the beetle. His hand raised to extend it above him flat. Across the extreme tip of his middle finger, he saw now, as he lifted his hand, a faint 1/16 of an inch of black tread where the tire had touched in passing. He looked at the black line with disbelief. This wasn't the police, he thought. He looked down the boulevard. It was clear now. A careful of children, all ages, God knew from 12 to 16, yelling and hurling, had seen a man strolling rapidly and said, "Let's get him," not knowing the man was the fugitive. Montag, simply a number of children out for a long, roaring, fun night at 60 miles an hour and a few moonlight hours, their faces icy, coming home and not coming home at dawn, alive or not alive, that made the adventure. They would have killed me, thought Montag. He walked toward the far curb, telling each foot to go and keep going. Somehow he picked up the spilled books. He didn't remember bending or touching them. He kept moving them from hand as if he had knocked a poker hand over, not a figure. I wonder if they were like the ones who killed Clarice. He stopped and his mind said it again very loud. I wonder if they were the ones who killed Clarice. He wanted to run after them, yelling. His eyes watered. The thing that had saved him was the falling flat. The driver of the car saw Montag, considered the probability that running over a body at such a high speed might turn the car upside down or even spill them out. If Montag had remained an upright target, he gasped. Far down the road, 4 blocks away, the beetle slowed and now raced back, slanting over the wrong side of the street and picked up speed. But Montag was long gone, hidden in the dark alley safely. He was now on his long journey. Was it an hour ago he'd started? He stood shivering in the night, looking out as the beetle ran by to the center of the avenue, whirled laughter in the air, and then gone. He moved in darkness. He could see the helicopters falling and falling like the first flakes of the snow. Winter to come. The house was silent. He approached Fabers' house from the rear, crept through a thick, moistened scent of daffodils and rose and wet grass. He touched the door, found it opened, and slipped in. "Mrs. Black, are you asleep in there?" he thought. "This isn't good, but your husband did it to the others and never asked and never wondered and never worried. And now since you're fireman's wife in your house and your turn for all these houses your husband burned and the people he hurt without thinking." So I tricked you there. He's not at Fabers' house. He's going to the firemen's houses. The house did not reply. He hid the books in the kitchen and he moved from the house again to the alley and looked back, and the house was still dark, quiet, and sleeping. On his way across town with the helicopters fluttering like torn bits of paper, he phoned the alarm at a lonely booth outside and was closed for the night. And then he stood, waiting at a distance. He heard the fire sirens up, the salamanders coming to burn Mr. Black's house while he was away at work, to make his wife stand shivering while the roof let go and dropped in from the fire. But now she was asleep. Good night, Mrs. Black. Faber! Another rap, a whisper, a long waiting. Then after a minute, a small flickered inside Fabers' house. After another pause, the back door opened. They stood looking at each other in the half-light, Fabers and Montag, as if they couldn't believe the other's existence. And then Faber moved and put out his hand and grabbed Montag and moved in and sat him and went back and stood in the door listening. The sirens wailing in the morning distance. He came in and shut the door. Montag said, "I've been a fool. All down the line. I can't say how long, but I'm on my way, God knows where." Montag, "At least you were a fool about the right things for once," said Faber. "I thought you were dead, the audio capsule I gave you." Captain Beatty burned it. "I heard the captain talking to you, and suddenly there was nothing. I almost came out looking for you." "The captain's dead. You found the audio capsule in my ear. He heard your voice. He was going to trace it. I killed him. I killed him with the flamethrower." Faber sat down and didn't speak for a time. My God, how did this happen?" said Montag. "It was just the other night everything was fine, and the next thing I know I'm drowning. How many times can a man go down and still be alive? I can't breathe. Beatty's dead. He was my friend once, and Millie's gone. I thought she was my wife, but now I don't know. And the house is burnt, my job gone, and I'm running. I just planted a book in one of the firemen's houses on the way here. Good Christ, the things I've done in a single week." Montag, you did what you had to do. It was coming for a long time now. Faber, I believe that, but if there's nothing else, I believe it saved itself up to happen. I could feel it for a time. I was saving something up. I went around doing things and feeling things. God, it was all there. It's a wonder it didn't show me like fat. And now here I am messing up your life too. They might follow me here. Montag, I want to tell you something. I've never felt more alive than I have for the first time in years. I feel I'm doing what I should have done a lifetime ago. For a little while, I'm not afraid. Maybe it's because I'm doing the right things at last. Maybe it's because I've done a rash of things and I don't want to look like a coward to you. I suppose I'll do whatever, even more violent things, exposing myself so I won't fall down on the job and turn scared again. What are your plans? I'm going to keep running. You know the war started. I know, I heard. God, isn't it funny? Said Faber. It seems so remote because we have our own troubles in our own lives. I haven't had time to even think about this. Montag drew out $100. I want this to stay with you. Use this money in any way you think that'll help when I'm gone. But I might be dead by noon. Please, Mr. Faber, use this money. Faber nodded. you better head for the river if you can follow it along. And if you can hit the old railroad lines going out in the country, follow them. Even though practically everything's airborne these days and most of the tracks are abandoned, the rails are still there, rusting. I've heard there's still hobo camps all across the country, here and there. Walking camps, they call them. And if you keep walking far enough and keep an eye peeled, they say there's lots of old Harvard degrees on the tracks between here and LA. Most of them have wanted and hunted in the cities. They survive, I guess. There aren't many of them, and I guess the government's never considered them a great enough danger to track them. You might hole up in there for a time, Montag. Get in touch with me in St. Louis. I'm leaving on the 5 a.m. bus this morning. I'm going to see a retired printer there. I'm getting out in the open myself at last. This money will put me to good use. Thank you, Montag. God bless you. You want to sleep, take a nap for a few minutes? No. I'm going to run. All right, let's check. He took Montag to the bedroom, lifted a picture frame from revealing a TV screen the size of a postal card. I've always wanted something very small, something I could walk to, something I could blot out with the palm of my hand if necessary, nothing that could shout me down, nothing monstrous or big. So you see, he snapped it on. Montag. The TV stand and lid went up. M-O-N-T-A-G. The name was spelled out by the TV voice. Guy Montag, still running. Police helicopters are in the air. A few new mechanical hounds have brought from another district in the search. Montag and Faber just looked at each other as the TV continued. Mechanical hounds never fail. Since it's the first use in tracking Corey, has this been an incredible invention and never made a mistake. Tonight on the news, folks, this network is proud to have the opportunity to follow the hound with cameras, live, and by camera helicopter as it starts on its way for their target, Montag. Faber poured 2 glasses of whiskey. We're going to need these. They drank. Noses so sensitive the mechanical hounds can remember and identify 10,000 odor indexes on a 10,000 men without resetting. Faber trembled the last bit, looked at his house, at the walls, the doorknob, the chair where Montag was. Montag saw the look. They both looked quickly around the house, and he felt his nostrils dilate as he knew they were trying to track himself, and his nose was suddenly good enough to sense the path he had made in the air, and the room and the sweat with his hand hung from the doorknob. Invisible but his numerous of jewels, he was anywhere, about everything. He was luminous cloud, a ghost that made breathing impossible. He saw Faber stop up on his breath, for they were drawing the ghost into his own body, perhaps contained with the phantom exhilarations and the odors of the running man. A mechanical hound. It's landing now by helicopter at the side of the burning. And then there was one small screen that was burnt at the house, the crowd and something with a sheet over it, and out in the sky, fluttering, came the helicopter like a grotesque flower. So they must have had their game out, thought Montag. The circus must go on even when the war beginning within the hour. He watched the scene, fascinated, not wanting to move. It seemed so remote and not part of him. It was the play apart and separate, wondrous to watch, not without its strange pleasures. That's all for me, you thought. That's all taking place just for me. By God. If he wished, he could linger here in comfort and follow the entire hunt on through its swift phases, down alleys, across streets, empty avenues, crossing lots and playing grounds with pauses here and there for the necessary commercials, up other alleys to the burning house of Mr. and Mrs. Black, and so finally to this house, with Faber and himself seated, drinking while the electric hound snuffed down the last trail. Silent as a drift of death itself, skidding to a halt outside the window there. And then if he wished, Montag might rise, walk to the window, keep one eye on the TV screen, open the window, lean out, look back and see himself dramatized and described, made over, standing there, limned in the bright, small TV screen from house outside, a drama to be watched objectively, knowing that in other parlors he was as large as life and full color, dimensionally perfect. And he kept his eyes peeled as quickly as to see himself in an instant before an oblivion, being punctured for the benefit of how many civilian parlor sitters had been weakened from a sleep a few minutes ago by the frantic siren of their living room walls, to come watch the big game, the hunt, the one-man carnival. What do you have time for a speech? as the hound seized him in view of 10 or 20 or 30 million people watching? Mightn't he sum up his entire life in the last week of a single phrase or a word that would stay with him as long as the hound had turned, clenching him in its metal plier jaws and trotted off in the darkness, while the camera remained stationary, watching the creature dwindle in the distance? A splendid fade out. What could he say in a single word, a few words, that would sear all their faces and wake them up? There, whispered Faber. The helicopter glided something that was not a machine, not animal, not dead, not alive, glowing with a pale green luminosity. It stood near the smoking ruins of Montags' house, and the men brought his discarded flamethrower to it and put it down under the muzzle of the hound. There was a whirling, a clicking, and a humming. He shook his head and got up and drank the rest of his drink. It's time. Sorry about this, Faber. About what? Me? My house? I deserve everything. Run, for God's sakes, Montag. Perhaps I can delay them here. Wait. There's no use in you being discovered. When I leave, I want you to burn the spread of this bed that I touched. Burn the chair in the living room and put it all in your wall incinerator. Wipe down the furniture with alcohol. Wipe down your doorknobs. Burn the throw rug in the parlor. Turn on the air conditioning on full if the rooms are. Spray them with moss spray if you have to. And then turn on your lawn sprinklers as high as they'll go and hose off the sidewalks. With any luck at all, we'll kill the trail in here anyway. Faber shook his head. I'll tend to it. Good luck, Montag. If we're both in good health, next week, the week after that, we'll get in touch. General delivery, St. Louis. Sorry, there's no way I can go with you this time by earphone. That was good for both of us, but my equipment was limited. You see, I never thought I would use it. What a silly old man. No thought there. Stupid. Anyways, I haven't got another green bullet. The right kind to put in your ear. Go now, Montag. One last thing, quick. Here's a suitcase. Fill it with your dirtiest clothes, an old suit. The dirtier the better, a shirt, some old sneakers, and some socks. Faber was gone and back in a minute. They sealed the cardboard valise with clear tape. To keep ancient odor of Mr. Faber in, of course, said Faber, sweating at the job. He doused the exterior of the valise with whiskey. I don't want that hound picking up two odors at once. May I have your whiskey, Faber? I'll need it later. Christ, I hope this works. They shook hands and going out the door glanced at the TV. The hound was on its way, followed by a hovering helicopter camera, silently sniffing the ground. It was running down the first alley. Goodbye, Montag. Goodbye, Faber. And Montag was out the back door running with the half-empty valise. Behind him he heard the lawn sprinklers jumping up, filling the air, and then with a steady pour all about, washing on the sidewalks, draining into the alley. He carried a few drops of his rain with him on his face. He thought he heard the old man call goodbye, but he wasn't certain. He ran from the house down the river, and he ran. He could feel the hound on him like autumn, in the cold, dry swift, like a wind he didn't stir grass, and that didn't jar with windows to disturb leaf shadows on the white sidewalks as it passed. The hound did not touch the world. It carried its silence with it, so you could feel the silence building up, a pressure behind you all across town. He felt the pressure rising, and he ran. He stopped for breath on his way to the river, to peer through the lit windows and wakened houses, and saw the silhouettes of people watching their parlor walls, and on the walls the mechanical hound, a breath of neon vapor. Spidered along, here and gone, and now at the Elm Tree Lincoln Oak Park, up the alley towards Faber's house. Go past, thought Montag. Don't stop, please don't stop and turn in. On the parlor wall of Faber's house, with its sprinkler system pulsing in the night air, the hound paused, quivering. No, Montag held to the window sill. This way, here! The croquet needle flicked out and in, out and in. A single clear drop of stuff of dreams fell from the needle as it vanished in the hound's muzzle. He held his breath like a doubled fist in his chest. The mechanical hound turned and plunged away from Faber's house and back down the alley again. Montag snapped his gaze to the sky. The helicopters were close, blowing of insects and a single light source. With an effort, he reminded himself again that this was no fictional episode to be watched on his run of the river. It was actually his own chess game. He was witnessing move by move. He shouted to give himself the necessary push away from this last house and fascinated seance going on in there. Hell, and he was away and gone. The alley a street, and the smell of the river. Leg out, leg down, 20 million Montags running soon if the cameras caught him. 20 million Montags running like an ancient flickery Keystone comedy. Cops, robbers, chasers in the chased, hunters in the hunted. He had seen it 1,000 times. Behind him now, 20 million silently baying hounds ricocheted across parlor walls, shooting from right wall to center wall to left, right to center, left, and then gone. Montag jammed his seashell to his ear. Police suggest an entire population in the Elm Tree Terrace do as follows. Everyone in their house, street, open a front or rear door, look to the windows. The fugitive cannot escape. If everyone in the next minute looks for his house, ready. All right, I'm going to stop there. We will do our last 10 pages and finish the book up on Friday. Got to see Montag and Faber have their one last sort of talk as Faber sends him to the hobo camps, who are actually, if you heard that, retired professors from Ivy League colleges like Harvard. Remember, in this world, colleges have been burned, books have been burned, learning has been banned, and high school professors and teachers like myself have been made hobos and homeless. Let me know if you have any questions, guys. I'll be there at your Google Meet from 2 to 2:30. Don't forget your journal, and I will see you guys next time.